something about myself. And in my work, often it's lovely to think about your clients' wins, but often I'm a therapist, like bad things happen, sad things happen, and that's part of it. And actually being able to help clients to see, what's the word? The light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I just had a beautiful session, which is a prime example of that. The client is going through something really horrible with their narcissistic mother, and actually being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that this is, progress isn't linear, and everything is happening exactly as it should, has really, really helped her to get back to remember what's important, and actually that there is so, so, so much good in her life. But one of the things that I realised, which I haven't really thought about before, is that we are all perfectionists in our own way, because perfectionism just comes from a feeling of not being good enough and needing to improve ourselves, and anxiety, really, fear and doubt. And although I am not a perfectionist in the most obvious sense, just like I don't have anxiety in the most obvious sense, I realised that in so ways I am a perfectionist, and yeah, not in the obvious sense. Like I'm not like having to have perfect hair and makeup every day. I can leave the house without wipes, and I won't go into spiral into self-doubt because I didn't get everything right. My house is definitely not perfect ever. God, I wish it was. No, I don't, because I think actually I always think if someone's got a perfect home, you've got to think why. If things look perfect, it comes at a cost. And actually that was what the lovely podcast I did last week, out last week, where Julia was talking about. She's a perfectionist. The cost of perfectionist was her children have a stressed, overwhelmed mother all the time. And actually, our kids are not going to remember if our house was a bit messy. There are levels, but yeah, I don't think my kids are going to grow up and be like, oh, Mum, our house was always horrendous. It's not that bad. It's just not perfect. There's always a bit of washing somewhere. My office, I don't even want you to see that. That's always a state, because my office is like my dumping ground, and the walls need repainting, even though they've only just been painted. If you've got any tips on cleaning kids basically off walls, I haven't killed them, but the kids are ruining my walls. Can you give them to me? Because I think I could have got white clean paint, which I obviously didn't do, did I? And there's just fingertips everywhere. But how I am a perfectionist, or I'm recovering, let's say, recovering, is I put a lot of pressure on myself to be calm, to be patient, to be able to manage my emotions. And I'm actually very good at those things. Like if I look at me compared to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, wow, I can't believe you're there. But I'm never going to be perfect. And I have to be able to accept that sometimes, it's not even sometimes I shout, because I don't mind that. Sometimes I can be sad or I can be anxious. I don't like that. That's what I don't like. I don't like that, the sad and the anxious, or the angry. The odd like shouting because my kids haven't put their shoes on. I don't, to be honest, it's quite rare. That doesn't bother me. When I get into a pit of feeling sorry, do you know what it is? It's feeling sorry for myself, because I hate that. I hate feeling sorry for myself. Like I always do. I have an abundant life, and I work hard to feel grateful for everything I have. And okay, I think it's the feeling, seeing the effect. There it is. I should be happy all the time. And that's ridiculous. I don't expect anyone else to be happy all the time. That's a thing I put on me. And that is where I noticed that perfectionism was there when I was younger. So when I was growing up, I had a very strong belief that people only liked my good side. So I never showed anyone when I was sad, or I was hurt, or I was even probably, I maybe would have said I had an argument with my mum, but the parts of me that I wasn't proud of, I hid. And I was the happy, confident person. Even when I doubted myself, because I wasn't a confident person, that's not true, but I managed to only show the parts of me that made it seem like I was a really confident person. And let me tell you, this wasn't conscious. I didn't know I was doing this. I had absolutely no self-awareness. But as a therapist, I can see that, and I can see that in my clients. And I so often will say to someone, are you a bit of a perfectionist? And they'll say no. And then we deep dive into it, and it's like, oh, actually, maybe I am. And the place for me that it shows up the most is I'm not allowed to sit still. Not allowed. It drives me mad. And even as I was writing this podcast, like the notes, I was thinking, I don't know how I want to share this. What I was which is so silly, because if anyone else said this to me, I'd be like, what? Why are you worried about that? What I was saying was, so say sometimes when the kids get in from school and I'm exhausted because I'm a working mum, so I do I do like the 5:30 till 9 shift, then I do the 9 till 3, then I do the 3 till 7, which is till bedtime with the kids. So it's parenting, work, parenting. And then often I do the 7 till 9 with work again. So obviously, sometimes I'm really fucking tired. And I feel guilty if I give my kids their iPad and I lie on the sofa and watch TV. I feel so guilty when I do that. And if a client said to me, I feel guilty because I sit and watch TV and let my children watch their iPads because they're tired, I would say, you're allowed to be tired. You're a human. You're not a robot. You're allowed feelings. But when I do that, I will sit there and I'll do max 20 minutes. Max 20 minutes. And then I'll have to do something like go and do some washing, do some work, go and plan dinner, start doing food shopping. That's a classic one. Oh, okay, well, I can sit down as long as I'm doing some admin on my phone, like I'm doing some emails, or I'm doing some, like ordering some presents for a birthday, or planning something that's on my to-do list. As long as I'm doing something on my to-do list, I can sit down. But to sit and watch TV because I'm tired in the day when my kids are on screens, I might as well have committed a murder to my nervous system. I am, and I try. It's on a Thursday normally, because like by Thursday I'm exhausted. I don't work Fridays. Kardashians comes out on Thursday. So I like to sit down. I like to watch it. I've never watched the whole episode. But do you know what? That's a goal for the week. And actually, I want you to think about this. In what ways are you expecting yourself to be perfect? And you are expecting yourself to have standards that if your friend told you that the thing, you'd be like, no, that's fine. You haven't done anything wrong. Because that's self-compassion. Self-compassion is talking to ourselves the way we would talk to our friends and the way we would talk to our kids. The last person we are compassionate with is ourselves. But if you reframe it and you think, I want to model the behaviour that will help my children grow up to be happy, healthy humans, one of the things I need to model is rest. And for me, always doing, always being, always progress, I know is not a good example to my children. And I know that because I'm a therapist who has clients who we explore that all the time. And I also know where it comes from because my mum never sat down. She was always going. And now at 67, she's 68. 68. She constantly tells me she's bored because she's retired and she doesn't have enough stuff to do to be always doing. And she makes me feel guilty because I'm like, why can't you just relax, enjoy your retirement? And if I don't work on this now, I'm going to be her, aren't I? I'm going to be saying I'm bored when I'm retired. To be fair, I already say I'm not going to retire. I'm always going to work. God, is that perfectionism there? Sneaky. Perfectionism is just like anxiety. It is sneaky. It sneaks in and it's very hard to decipher. But I would say the way you decipher it is you have to think, is this coming from a carrot or coming from a stick? Because if your drive is from a carrot, so like, how do I describe that? Everyone knows this carrot and stick analogy, but I can't explain it. Your drive is coming from a carrot. It's coming from a kind place. So it's like, if I do this, I'm going to feel proud of myself and it's going to make me feel happier. Whereas if it's coming from, if I don't do this, I'm a fucking loser and I'm letting down my children and I'm going to be fat. That's a good one in the gym. So if you're using the stick in the gym, you are a fat pig, run. And if you're using a carrot, you're saying you should be so proud of yourself for prioritizing your health and your fitness. It's going to make you a better mum and you're going to feel so good in your clothes in the summer. Make sense? So if it's coming from with me sitting on the sofa, me saying you're lazy, get up, you're a terrible mum, that's my inner critic. that is fear and doubt. That is a stick. And that is not how I would talk to anyone else. And if you're talking to yourself in a way that you wouldn't talk to anyone else, if you notice that voice, like I said, my voice is called Karen. If you notice her and she's talking to you and she's being mean, she's being a bully, that's the stick. And that's not helpful. That's what keeps us up at night. That is what keeps us in fight or flight. That is when we're going to be more snappy. And that's just not the role model that we want to be. So rest. So what I say to my clients is we create, if we have a repetitive negative thought, what we need to do is create a more positive alternative or an affirmation, because you can't have two negative thoughts in your brain at the same time. Two thoughts in your brain at the same time. So if you try this, say, I'm a terrible mother, you feel your nervous system literally feels like you're a terrible mother. Say, I am a good, comes from a place of calm. I am a good mum. I deserve to rest. When I show my children rest, I am modelling healthy habits. When I show my children rest, I'm showing them that I am important, and I'm showing them how to prioritise their needs and their well-being. And actually, this is making me think, my daughter actually had a PSHE lesson yesterday, and it was about sleep and how important sleep is. They're learning this stuff at school. We need to be modelling it. I was actually, I went to parents' evening last week. This podcast might be a bit of a ramble. But this was really interesting, by the way. I went to parents' evening last week and I was walking around the school, and my daughter's school, I don't know if other schools are like this, but I think when it comes to emotional well-being, I think they're absolutely brilliant. They don't take them on school trips. So I think it is quite a deprived school. But when it comes to emotional well-being, they're amazing. And all around the school, there are all these growth mindset quotes. Oh, let me see if I can find one. I did put this one on my story, but you need a reminder. You have to hear something 15 times before you believe it. One of the quotes that I took a picture of, no, that's a picture of a new Stanley Cup, was, all things are difficult until they become easy. And there were just these beautiful quotes all around the school. And I thought that the kids are getting these messages all day, every day. And so as they grow up, they're going to believe these things. All good things are difficult until they become easy. I have the ability to do hard things. I have the ability to change things. Sleep is important. Can you imagine at school learning that sleep is important? I thought, oh, I'd love to do a talk in the school about mindset. And then I thought, no, do you know what? I don't need to do a talk in the school with these children about mindset, because they're learning all this stuff at school. What would be amazing was to do a talk with the parents about mindset, because if we want to really reinforce these beliefs, like all things are difficult until they become easy, the parents need to be reinforcing them at home. And wouldn't that be cool to do a talk about mindset and letting go of perfectionism and being kind to yourself and becoming the role model you needed to see, becoming the mum you needed at school? That's something I'm thinking about. Like I say, I've got an ADHD. Have I got ADHD? Who knows? But I have a lot of thoughts. I get excited about a lot of things. I love what I do. And so being able to share this stuff is it's exciting, actually. And I want to do more things that make me feel excited. So let's just talk a bit more about the link between perfectionism and anxiety. What's good is I wrote 3 pages of notes. I haven't even looked at them. So perfectionism is just fear disguised as control. Yeah. Which is why I say it's anxiety, because anxiety is all about control. And I actually think perfectionism is the mental health issue in itself. I mean, we can just call it anxiety, but what's funny is it's celebrated. Like, no one celebrates anxiety, but people celebrate being perfectionist. I hear Kim Kardashian talk about it all the time. I do worry about that with her mental health. She might be a billionaire, but the lack of sleep that she has, because she has to do so much, can't be good for her. Maybe one day I can be her therapist. She does have one now. So when we try to control everything, we think we're reducing anxiety, but we're actually feeding into it. And a prime example of that is, I was going to talk about my mum, but actually I want to talk about something that I've been dealing with, supporting a client with at the moment. So what would be a good example of thinking control is reducing anxiety? I would actually say control would be never letting your kids have screens because you're too worried about the dangers of screens. But then you inevitably get more stressed, more overwhelmed, which has a negative impact on your children. And actually, if they just had some screen time, you can limit it however you want to limit it. So you can lie on the sofa and rest. Everyone is happier. And also, more importantly, we cannot control everything. So it doesn't matter how long you try to control what your children are consuming. Eventually, they're going to consume whatever they want because their friends are going to be the biggest influence in their lives. And my mum talked about this actually the other day. When she was young, she was very poor. They didn't get a TV for ages. She felt so left out because everyone else was watching TV and she couldn't. And then she finally got a TV and it was like she fitted in. And it's the same. I've worked with kids whose parents banned them from using TikTok. Everyone else is using TikTok. They were all doing TikTok videos. She couldn't do them. Really affected her friendships. So we just can't control everything. We can't. We can limit TikTok for as long as possible, but we can't. And I think when you let go of control and realise that you just influence as much as possible, and hopefully you've raised kids who are strong enough to survive life's hardships, because life is going to be hard at times, they'll be okay. When you model good behaviour, when you model good boundaries. I saw the other day Francesca Amber had posted that she has a book club. She reads all the time, and now they've just been on holiday and her daughter was reading all the time. Yep, I could sit on the sofa more and read. I do say I'm going to do that all the time. Do I do it? Do you know how long I've had this book on my desk? Raising Happier Mothers. I've read 5 pages. I do read, but just audio book, and then reading. I read fiction. And I really want to read this, but I think I'm just going to have to accept I need to get the audio book. But yeah, so the pressure to get it right with parenting, whether it's routines, getting gentle parenting, or making sure our kids feel happy all the time, is exhausting. And the reason I have this podcast is because I want people to understand that to raise happy children, you don't have to do things perfectly. And actually, perfectionism, I think, is a burden that we will put on our kids if we try and do things perfectly, because then they have to do things perfectly. Like, I can't rest because my mum never rested. You can gentle parent imperfectly. You can have routines imperfectly. Your kids can feel happy imperfectly. They won't feel happy all the time. That's not possible. They will be sad. You will let them down, but you have repair. And the hidden mental load of perfectionism and how it leads to overthinking, procrastination, and feeling stuck is actually the problem. Because if you try and do things perfectly, you procrastinate on them. You don't get them done because it's so hard to do them perfectly that we give up. And if we can just see progress is so much better than perfection, everything changes. Like, if you want to work out, progress is over perfection. If you want to eat better, progress over perfection. Like, at the moment, my goal is to just not eat my kids' leftovers. Absolutely. It's so hard. I always say I'm not a bin, and I've become a bin. Progress over perfection. All right, I've actually got to go and see a client, so I will be back in later to finish this. Hey. Hello, I am back. I have been to see a client, I have been to school, I have been to swimming lessons, I have dealt with multiple meltdowns and a dropped sandwich, and I'm back to recording my Perfectionism podcast. And I'm not going to edit this out because I practice what I preach, and this is meant to be imperfect, because the reason we don't get things done, what I was just talking about, was procrastination. If we try and make things perfect, we don't get them done. And progress is always better than perfection. If I tried to make this podcast perfect, I would never, ever be able to release it once a week. And that is it. I'm all about consistency and making it better. And that's why sometimes the sound isn't brilliant, and I'm terrible at tech, and it's going to be amazing. I know it is. And eventually I'll be in the studio every week. But for now, I still have the same message. If you have grown up with someone who always has to do things perfect, very often they probably don't finish things, or they don't try hard things, because you can't do hard things perfectly all the time. And the mental load that it takes as a mum to do things perfectly, it may have worked for you before you have kids, because you didn't have the chaos, like I said, of like the sandwich going wrong, or your kids refusing to get dressed, or you're on a schedule to get to swimming on time and they don't stick to the schedule. And if you are trying to be perfect all the time, you are going to be losing your shit so much more. So if you can just keep a little mantra in your mind, perfect doesn't exist, done is better than perfect. No one will mind if I'm 2 minutes late. One of my things, I learned this from Mo Gowda, and if you don't know who Mo Gowda is, you need to. He's the happiness expert. And he found that job after losing his son, or his life purpose, that in every single moment we have a choice. That was his choice. And he talks about whenever he's late, he thinks about how everyone is rushing all the time and everyone needs an extra couple of minutes. And so I always say that to my clients, if you're running late, I always need a couple of minutes just to breathe. And that is not a problem. And most people are grateful for that extra 2 minutes, especially if they're mothers, because everyone knows that you don't get a second. And my best friend, actually, if we ever go for dinner, I'm always late, and she always gets there early so she can have a wine by herself, because it's the only time that she ever gets a moment's peace. So what's next? Okay, so what actually works when you want to break free from perfectionism? Well, I've given you a few tips along the way, I hope, but I have still got some final thoughts. Firstly, moving your body. So if you are feeling stuck, you're procrastinating, and you want to just like break that loop and get going, moving your body is brilliant. So like shaking, exercising, do a few squats, do a few press-ups. I actually have a wonky list in my phone, and I would highly recommend doing yourself a wonky list. And on my wonky list, it's like when I'm really procrastinating, when I can't get focused, when I feel a bit crappy, I have a list of things that I know are going to boost my mood. One is a dog walk, one is dance to my favourite song, one is I make myself an omelette with avocado, journal. For me, journaling is my number one with anything, or writing a gratitude list. And just have a list of things that help you. Shaking. The other day I was feeling really anxious and I just had a shake where you just shake every bit of your body. And that movement, because anxiety is just energy, and if you can just get that out of your body, it's a great way to reset. And then set yourself small, manageable goals. So my whole day is managed by timers. I have 25-minute timers to do anything, because that is really how long we can concentrate. And then I have a 5-minute break. And I try and do everything with timers. And I also have like a list to stay focused on the things I need to do. Obviously, I'm running a bit late because I'm not meant to be recording this after school. But pretty much today, I've been recording my day, like what I do in the day. And I've realised I did the morning. And that kept me really focused, because I did my daily planner, I did my exercise, which gives me my energy, did some cleaning. Cleaning is also another great way to move some energy along. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I clean out a cupboard, I'll clean my kitchen. I love when my kitchen is cleaned, and I put a candle on and it looks like no one lives there. I love that. I love that for me. And that is a great way to help me get started and help me let go of doing things perfectly and just get going. When it comes to parenting, what I would say was there are so many reasons why letting go of perfectionism is going to make you a better mum. And the main one is, and I've said it before, I say it to all my clients, if you're a perfect parent, then they have to be perfect adults, perfect children. And do you want them to feel like they're not good enough unless they're perfect? No. So you lowering your standards a bit will actually make you a better role model and a better mum, probably better everything. Perfectionism is something we learn, definitely. And it is something that we have the power to change. And like I just said, in every single second, we have a choice. And if you can get used to that, that's my new mantra this week. In every single second, I have a choice. Even today at the gym, when I was procrastinating, I was like, every single second I have a choice. I'm going to choose to listen to the music and really enjoy the beat. Because my gym instructors play the best music and I miss it half the time because I'm not concentrating. Okay, so I've got to go because I've got to go make dinner, and my husband's just coming in and making noise, and this is the most imperfect podcast I could have ever made, which the universe sent me this for a reason. Like, I'm meant to show you what messy looks like and show you that done is better than perfect, and I'm going to feel proud of myself that I've got this done. Okay, so if you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling exhausted or trapped in the pressure just to be perfect, I have lots of different support options. I have a Calm to Chaos workshop that is just $9.99, and you get a workbook, and then it's a 30-minute workshop with lots of actionable steps. I have my Finding You Reset, which is a 90-minute session you can book with me that comes with voice note coaching for the next month, to keep you accountable to any goals that we set, and just to really like help you to deep dive into why you're struggling with perfectionism. Because actually the first step is self-awareness. So we walk around blind, all of us, all the time. I'm learning stuff about myself all the time. And once we know things, it's so much easier to change them. It's so much easier to explain them to our partner. That's one thing I was saying to a client, my last client, like, now we figured this out, why it's hard for you, you can explain it to your partner and it's going to cause us arguments, because perfectionism is going to cause a lot of arguments in your relationship. That's the thing, because your partner's not going to be able to help or do things to your standards. And then I have my one-to-one coaching, which is either 3 or 6 months working with me to completely like rewrite your story, to help you to start seeing how amazing life can be and how much easier life can be and how much more you can achieve when you let go of perfectionism. And I love that. I love doing that for people, because I get to be your cheerleader. And for 6 months, you just have me in your pocket, meeting with you regularly, just to cheer you on and to help you believe yourself and to quiet that inner critic that is constantly telling you that you're not good enough unless you're perfect. And actually, sometimes we can't do that on our own, quiet our inner critic, and we need someone else who can be there to just help to like rewire those neural pathways, those beliefs you have in your brain that you aren't good enough unless you're perfect. You have to have repetition, consistency to make changes, but you can make change. And I promise life will feel so much more magical on the other side. It's not easy. Like, no, nothing amazing is easy, but I can't imagine what my life would look like if I hadn't had therapy, if I hadn't had coaching, if I hadn't done this work. Because I wasn't a very happy person and I was plagued by all my limiting beliefs, and I did feel really stuck and I didn't know how to make change. And now life is messy and life is still chaotic. My life's always going to be chaotic. I'm pretty chaotic, but I live a life that I love. I have a job that I love. I love doing this podcast and I just can't wait to see it grow. And I have so many tools. And I was saying to someone yesterday, my friend Nicola, she's a breathwork teacher. I was like, some people have no tools to deal with their anxiety, their overwhelm, their inner critic. They just accept that this is their actual voice. And you might be in that place. And I promise you don't have to be in that place. And your kids won't be at that place, because luckily they learn this stuff in schools, but we didn't. We have to reparent ourselves. We have to learn new ways, unless we were lucky enough to have like very emotionally mature parents. I didn't. I don't know many people who did. Okay, so if you like this podcast, please leave me a comment, or follow me on Instagram, the imperfect.mum and Natasha Nyake Therapy, detailed below. And what's the last thing I was meant to say? Check out my website, natashanyaketherapy.com. And I know what it was. Share this with a mum who you think it could be helpful with. I think that like podcasts, I learned so much from podcasts. That's why I have a podcast. And actually share this with a mum who could use it, because not everyone can go to therapy. Not everyone has the time, the money to do all the things, but we can all listen to podcasts. We can all read books. There are so many affordable ways that we can make change, and consistency is key. And even if you listen to one podcast that helps your self-development a week, even if you read one book a month that helps self-development, I do this. I'm in a book club, and it is possible only because I have Audible. I don't read them. I listen